in Islam, and Mike has alluded to this in his presentation, there is a different conception of what happened regarding the crucifixion of Jesus. The crucial verse is in chapter 4, verse number 157, where it says, مَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ. I'm giving you the original language, just like Mel Gibson would. If I'm to translate that, it means they killed him not, nor did they crucify him, but so it was made to appear to them. And those who differed concerning the matter are in doubt concerning him. For a certainty they killed him not. But God raised him to himself. And God is mighty and wise. Now, this verse has been interpreted by classical commentators on the Qur'an as meaning that someone else was transformed, made to look like Jesus, and that someone else was crucified instead of Jesus. So that, whereas everything appeared as though Jesus was being crucified, in fact, it were not so. Now, I said classical interpreters of the Qur'an, and that may give the impression that these are the original and earliest interpreters, but they were not. In fact, Neil Robinson, a very able scholar from Leeds University in the United Kingdom, in his book Christ in Islam and Christianity, has traced the origins of these interpretations and found them to be originating from Iraq in the middle of the 2nd century. There is no reported saying from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that gives the details of this. Just a stark narrative, the way I've translated it from the Quranic text. Some classical commentators, on the other hand, struggle with the variety of interpretive detail that was given by various commentators. And the best summation of that I have found to be in the Tafsir al-Kabir, the big tafsir, the big commentary, by the pride of the faith, Al-Razi. Now, Al-Razi, after summarizing all of the various interpretations that have been offered by Muslim scholars on this, in the end he concludes by saying these interpretations are contradictory one to another, and in the end only God knows what happens. And I think that is the best Muslim position regarding what happened at the crucifixion. Now, if we were to retrace our steps and find out where all these varied interpretations came from, where did Muslim scholars get the idea that someone else was made to look like Jesus and crucified instead? These came from a variety of sources, including informers from people of other faiths in the area. There were some early Christian groups, not the earliest, mind you, from the 2nd century of Christianity forward. There were Gnostics who believed that someone else was made to look like Jesus. In the Mel Gibson movie, we saw Simon of Cyrene carrying the cross along with Jesus. And some had believed that Simon was in fact transformed to look like Jesus and was crucified instead of Jesus. And so this kind of information fed into the Muslim commentaries. But now when these commentaries are examined carefully, most modern scholars would tend today in Islam to think that something else is the reality behind the Quranic narrative. Yusuf Ali, for example, in his translation of the Quran, has it such that even though it appeared to the onlookers that Jesus had died on the cross, in fact, he had not died. Further to that, we have Muhammad Asad in the Message of the Quran, again a translation and commentary on the Quran, well rooted in the traditional tafsirs, saying also that the stories which grew up within Muslim tradition to say that someone else was put on the cross instead of Jesus is not necessarily what the Quran implies. And in fact, he found and he exposed a very difficult problem with that interpretation. What he said was that the passage, how much more time do I have? Any indication? 12 minutes. I don't want to spend all my time here on Quranic interpretation and not get to the biblical facts. I want to be sure of that. So be careful. What he said was that these stories that grew up among Muslim commentators ignored a grammatical problem that was there in the way they have interpreted the verse. And this grammatical problem was pointed out by an ancient classical scholar of Quranic tafsir, a scholar by the name of Az-Zamakhshari in his tafsir known as Al-Kashaf, the Unveiling. And what Zamakhshari said was that, in fact, when you look at the passage, it says he was made to appear to them. But it could also mean it was made to appear to them. Because in the Arabic reference, the reference who, using a personal pronoun there, could refer to him or to it. And he said that if in fact this verse is referring to the crucified person, that the crucified person was made to look like Jesus, that crucified person should have previously been mentioned so that the referent could be attached to him. See, if you're telling a story and you said, he said, we want to know who is this he. But if this person was just mentioned a little while ago, we know this is referring to that person. If the person was not mentioned, you have to introduce him by name. And so Zamakshari pointed out that this could not be a reference to the crucified individual. But the classical commentators were basing their commentary on the idea that this referred to Jesus. But Zamakshari pointed out that in fact it couldn't refer to Jesus because it was not Jesus who was made to resemble someone else, according to their explanation. It was someone else who was made to refer to Jesus. And Zamakshari proposed instead, even though he himself did not reach the logical conclusion of his proposal, he proposed that the verse actually means it was made so to appear to them. As in the Arabic expression, khuyila lahum. It seemed so to them. So now, many modern commentators would follow that interpretation and say that what the verse is saying is that even though it appeared to them that they had crucified Jesus, in fact they had not done so.